Hey there, chess video fans. It's Camus here, and I'm going to show you another classic game. Well, these games aren't classics, but they're games that are interesting, and I've found them useful in my career. So they're sort of personal selection of classics. And today we're going to be seeing a game between Walter Browne and Vlastimil Hort. Both these guys were probably at the peak of their powers in 1975, top grandmasters in the Wijk-An-Zee, which was one, and probably still is, one of the top tournaments in the world. And here we go. Browne is playing white. 1e4, d6, d4, knight f6, knight c3, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, bishop e2. This is a system popularized by Karpov. Castles. And now we've reached a very normal position in the Perk modern defense. And Hort goes ahead and plays a standard move, c6, the idea of some expansion on the queen side. And Browne played a4, presumably to stop b5. Hort seemed a little dubious about that move. He said he wasn't sure why Browne would play it, but it's actually quite reasonable. Perhaps he was being facetious. It's been played by Karpov and has some decent results. So anyway, a5 was his response to prevent any further expansion by Browne, who might want to have played a5 himself. And now Browne plays bishop to e3. And probably a better move here is h3, stopping knight to g4. Also stopping bishop to g4. But knight to g4 is the main move in this position, and that's what Hort plays here. Queen c7 was also possible, but there's a kind of a theme that develops in this game, as you'll see, and that's the harassment of this bishop on e3. So bishop g5 was played, h6 again, kicking this bishop around, bishop to h4. And now Hort said he was quite happy with his position, didn't feel the need to go any further with g5. So he attended to his development by playing knight to a6. And even though the knight is on the rim here, its prospects are actually pretty good. It can go to c7 and have some influence over the center, or it can go to b4. Now, Browne played rook to e1 here in this position. Perhaps he should have played knight to d2. Hort said he was a little worried about knight to d2. Knight to d2, h5 to protect the knight. And then after h3, knight to h6. And probably white has a small advantage due to the not ideal position of the knight on h6 and the slightly compromised pawn structure around black's king. So anyway, that was not played. Rook to e1 was played instead. Here we go. Here's the game continuation. Now knight to b4. And Hort remarked on the pretty position of the symmetrical knights on b4 and g4 here. And that I would say that black has at least equality in this position. So bishop to c4. Browne's looking for some activity here. g5. Again, we're harassing this bishop. He's expended quite a lot of tempi trying to find a safe home. Bishop to g3, and now Hort says and the knight has done its job. So back to f6, where it's better placed. Now Rybka likes h3 here with approximate equality, but Browne played knight to d2 instead. Actually, Browne, after the game, thought that e5 might be better, but both Hort and Rybka disagreed. After e5, knight to h5, and black will be able to take this bishop and probably gets a small advantage in the position. So instead he played knight to d2, and that of course stops any kind of knight to h5 idea. So he decides to harass the other bishop, so he plays d5. And the bishop doesn't really have a lot of good squares it can go to. On d3, he can, of course, be taken by the knight there. On e2. He's blocking the e-file and weakening the defense of the e-pawn. On an f1, he has got little scope. Of course, on a1, he can be taken by the knight. So really only has one good square here, and that's bishop to b3. So Hort follows up with bishop to g4, attacking the white queen. And now the reply f3 is practically forced. I suppose white could play queen to c1. Then after knight to h5, bishop to e5, bishop takes e5, d takes e5, knight to f4, and so on. Bishop h3, bishop h5, e takes d5, c takes d5. Actually, black is doing just fine in these positions and probably has an advantage due to white's being clogged up on his last rank here. So anyway, after bishop to g4, f3 was played. The bishop retreats to h5, bishop to e5, queen to b6. He's connecting rooks, influencing the center and completing his development. And Browne played the natural move king h1 to throw out any possibility of any tricks happening on the diagonal between black's queen and white's king. Rook fd8, queen e2. Browne's doing the same thing, connecting his rooks, completing his development. And now Hort played a move which he mildly criticized, rook a to c8. He said that due to what happened in the game, that if he had played rook to d7, he could have saved the tempo on the game continuation. So it's certainly not a serious error, but he did call attention to it. So rook a to d1, bishop to g6, putting more pressure on the center. And now queen f1 was played. Now at this point, Hort considered knight to c2, and let's hear from Vlastimil.
Here I had possible combination with knight takes c2, but I wasn't too sure whether I wanted to play this idea, so I must explain there is brilliancy prize in this tournament, and maybe I was already thinking of it, but here I thought, well, if I take it, he can of course just take back with bishop from b3, and then if I capture pawn at b2, he can play where? Queen d3, so white is still piece up and position is not so clear. Maybe black is okay, but, well, I thought better here is to play solid positional move, good positional move like rook to d7. So this is what I played, and white immediately played pawn to f4. Well, of course I must take. And now I play this move g takes f4, and white replies queen takes f4. So, well, what to do now? Actually here black should move quite fast in case white gets anything worked up here. So now immediately I play the move. Well, actually I did think about this for 20 minutes just to see, but I play this move knight takes c2. Well, of course I see that the knight is lost, but there are complications here and not good play for black. So he changes knight to c2, so bishop changes the knight at c2. So now, well, this isn't so good. So now I play queen takes b2. Well, as you can see, a lot of pieces here are attacked by black, so he plays bishop takes f6. Now this position again is not so easy. I mean here, for instance, if you wanted to play bishop takes f6, then e5. And then of course you could play bishop to g5, but then comes queen to g4. So you see my comment a few minutes ago about doubling rooks, where the rook could have been at d8, where now of course slightly complicated, so I take with e-pawn, I play e takes f6. Well, of course now lots of pieces attacked here, so white brings back queen to e3. And now bishop is not protected here, so I change it to c2 with queen. Queen changes bishop at c2, and white plays rook to c1. well, he could try perhaps to trap queen with rook to b1, but then I just change it e4 with pawn, and position is not so good for white, so he plays 27 rook to c1. Well, of course, queen is attacked, must move, and only square here really is to b2. So queen goes to b2, and now white plays what he thinks is good move. I don't know how much he sees here, but he plays knight takes d5. Well, I didn't think he could do this, but I saw that pawn was pinned on c-file and my rook would go if I took it. But actually here, black is okay, because, well, I have two plans here. I could play bishop takes e4. Well, I'm not so sure. It's a little complicated, because if I play this move, he plays queen takes e4. Then the knight at d5 is on prise, so I can capture that. But then white can play queen takes d5. Then if I take back with pawn, of course, rook is still now on prise at c8. So this he changes, and king must go away to h7. And then where position is not so clear, because two rooks are quite good here. So I didn't want to play this line. Well, I wasn't too sure, but I thought here best move was probably to play the rook away from c8 to get away from this sort of pin-on c-file. I play rook to e8. Now, of course, white has slight embarrassment on this e-file, so he plays here another move here, slight tricks. Rook has now moved away from the file, so he continues harassment of queen with knight to c4. Well, of course, queen is attacked again, so queen goes away to a2. Now white continues with his 30th move, still to attack queen with queen to e2. But now, well, there's a little surprise coming for Brown here, because I just play queen takes e2. And not the sort of move that Brown probably would like to play against, because now, although he wins queen with 31 queen takes e2, he has little problems here, because I play now c takes the knight at d5. Now, as you can see, the knight is attacked, and the e-pawn also, so maybe he has big trouble here, but I don't know, he may be able to draw. It's not so clear, because now he has moved knight to b6, attacking rook at d7, so now rook must move. I moved it back from d7, well, I played it at d8, but now he plays move queen to b5, so in this position, white still has queen, he has few threats, so now, of course, well, what to do? Maybe I don't play right, but I decided to capture this e-pawn with bishop. Bishop g6 takes e4. Well, now, of course, queenside a bit vulnerable to the white queen. He plays 34, queen takes a5. So now I just decided to make some moves, because black, I thought, had some compensation here, but maybe white's okay, but I thought black had chances, because, well, with f5, which I now play, puts d4 point rather under pressure here. Knight at b6, not too much in game, so now he plays his queen back on 35th move to d2, protecting pawn, but now black makes little progress here with rook e6 attacking knight. So white plays on his 36th move. Well, of course, he must protect knight. He can't move, so he plays pawn to a5. So now black continues with rook to g6, putting pressure on the g2 square. But now this is attacked. He plays 37 rook to g1. Well, actually here I wasn't too sure how to continue. Perhaps bishop to f6 to g5, but, well, I don't know. I thought here perhaps better was to play active move bishop to f8. Well, I wasn't too convinced, but got into slight time difficulties, so I played bishop f8. I think here, if he plays, for instance, now h3, I have moved rook from d8 to d6, and then it can go to c6, and then I can play rook to c2. This is a very strong plan, I think, perhaps. Well, I don't think white's okay now, but now white plays, after bishop f8, knight to a4. So now I occupy c-file again with rook to c8, and white plays 39, knight to c3, attacking bishop, but bishop is very well protected, but something now Brown did not see, which is very strong, because black plays bishop to b4, and now white continues with queen to b2, and now moves that Brown completely overlooked here, rook takes c3. Well, of course, if he captures bishop at b4, then just bishop takes g2, and now he gets mated, so for this reason Brown stopped clocks and resigned. So as a result of this game I got brilliancy award, but after game, he says, Brown says, you sacrifice queen, I thought you only get draw. Sacrifice only worth it. In fact, he offered one in the game, but, well, if you try and play for brilliancy prize, why accept draw?
Thank you, Vlastimil. Well, as a matter of fact, he did win the brilliancy prize, and deservedly so. And as a matter of fact, the story is that after the game, he was so pleased with his performance that he went out and bought himself an expensive dinner. Well, anyway, what I liked about his commentary was just how simple he managed to explain it. It seemed like everything was crystal clear. And even though I know there was a lot of depth of calculation behind his moves, it just seems like the kind of chess that anyone could understand. Well, that's the game, and I'll show you the mating position again, not that it's that hard to see. After rook takes c3, which shows the point that Brown resigned, queen takes b4, bishop takes g2, rook takes g2, rook to c1, rook to g1, and either rook was checkmate, of course. I would like to thank Michael Basman for giving me permission to use some segments from his audio tapes. This segment was from Thor Speaks, and this is available on cassette, if anybody still has a cassette player, from audiochess.com. And Michael has the full catalog of all his cassettes for sale there, and there are many fascinating examples of players' commentary. I actually learned quite a lot from his cassettes over the years, and so I just want to put a plug in for him. And if you have a cassette player and you're interested, some of the lines that he espouses are perhaps considered unsound. Some of them are perfectly sound, some of them are outdated, but there is definitely valuable information that you can find on his website. So anyway, thank you, Mike Basman, and I'll be back at some later point with some more games. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you very much.